The phone call that changed everything. March 1983. Arnold Schwarzenegger sat in his Brentwood mansion office, sorting through scripts with the methodical precision he brought to everything. Conan the Barbarian had made him a star. Its sequel was guaranteed money. He was finally undeniably a Hollywood leading man. Then his agent called with news that made Arnold's stomach drop. James Cameron wants to meet with you about a new science fiction film. You'd play a killer robot from the future. Arnold's first instinct was immediate refusal. He'd spent years fighting typecasting, proving he was more than just a bodybuilding curiosity. Now some unknown director wanted him to play a machine? A character with minimal dialogue? Essentially a special effect with muscles? This could destroy everything we've built, his agent warned. You'll be the villain, the emotionless bad guy. It's a step backward, but something nagged at Arnold. James Cameron, he'd heard that name in industry circles. A perfectionist. A visionary. Someone who'd just delivered Piranha 2, The Spawning, a B-movie that somehow suggested hidden brilliance beneath schlock. Against every instinct and advisor's recommendation, Arnold agreed to one meeting. He had no idea this decision would either launch him into superstardom or end his career entirely. The meeting, the restaurant in West Hollywood, was modest, deliberately chosen by Cameron to keep things low-key. Arnold arrived expecting a typical Hollywood pitch: empty promises, inflated egos, desperate flattery. Instead, he met a 28-year-old director who barely acknowledged Arnold's celebrity status. Cameron sat down, pulled out hand-drawn sketches, and started talking about time travel paradoxes, artificial intelligence, and a relentless killing machine sent from a post-apocalyptic future. His passion was electric, almost manic. He spoke about the Terminator not as a character, but as a force of nature, unstoppable, inhuman, terrifying. The Terminator doesn't blink, Cameron explained, his eyes intense. Doesn't feel pain. Doesn't negotiate. It's death wearing human skin. Every movement calculated, every action efficient. Pure predatory focus. Arnold listened, fascinated despite himself. But then Cameron said something that made Arnold's competitive nature flare. I'm thinking Lance Henriksen for the Terminator. Or maybe someone completely unknown. The role doesn't need star power, it needs presence, physicality, threat. Arnold felt something unexpected: jealousy. The way Cameron described this character, it suddenly seemed like the most interesting role in the script. Not the hero Kyle Reese, who Cameron clearly wanted Arnold to play, the Terminator itself. What if, Arnold interrupted, I played the Terminator instead? Cameron looked skeptical. You're an action hero now. Leading men don't play villains. Especially not robotic villains with barely any dialogue. That's exactly why it would work, Arnold countered, his strategic mind already analyzing angles. Everyone expects me to play the hero. The surprise factor alone would be powerful. And think about the physicality. I can move like a machine because I've vet-trained my body with that kind of discipline for years. The conversation shifted. For 2 hours they dissected the character's psychology or lack thereof. How would a machine hunt? How would it analyze threats? Arnold started demonstrating movements, stripping away all human warmth from his gestures, making his face blank and predatory. Cameron watched, intrigued. Then he said something that would become legendary. I can see it. But you'll need to become something you've never been on screen. Not charming. Not heroic. Genuinely terrifying. Arnold smiled, not his usual charismatic grin, but something cold and mechanical. I understand. The studio's nightmare when Orion Pictures executives learned that Arnold Schwarzenegger wanted to play the villain in what they considered a low-budget sci-fi thriller. Panic set in. He's box office now, one executive argued in a heated meeting. We can't waste him on a supporting role as the bad guy. Audiences want to root for Arnold, not run from him. The budget was modest $6.4 million. In Hollywood terms, barely a real movie. The script was weird, full of time travel logic that confused studio readers. The director was unproven. And now their bankable star wanted to play the least sympathetic character imaginable. Mike Medavoy, Orion's executive, called Arnold directly. "Are you sure about this? We can find you a real leading role. Something with romance, heroism, a character audiences can love." Arnold's response was firm. "Trust me, this character will be more memorable than any hero." But internally, Arnold was terrified. His advisors were united in opposition. His manager called the decision career suicide. Even fellow actors warned him. Villains don't become icons. Heroes do. He'd staked everything on an instinct. What if he was wrong? The preparation Arnold approached the Terminator role like he'd approached winning Mr. Olympia through obsessive, methodical preparation. He studied robotics. He visited tech companies, watching how machines moved, how they processed information. He analyzed predatory animals, how sharks hunted with single-minded focus, how reptiles moved with cold efficiency. Then came the psychological work. Arnold had built his career on charisma, on connecting with audiences through warmth and personality. Now he needed to strip all of that away. Every human gesture, every smile, every blink, every moment of hesitation had to be eliminated. He worked with Cameron for weeks before filming, developing a movement vocabulary for the Terminator. Turns were mechanical, precise. Walking became purposeful striding. Even standing still had to suggest coiled threat. The most challenging aspect? The eyes. Arnold practiced for hours in mirrors, removing all warmth, all empathy, all humanity from his gaze. He needed eyes that looked through people, not at them. But production was chaos. Cameron was a perfectionist who demanded take after take, obsessing over details most directors would overlook. The budget was tight, forcing creative solutions to technical problems. Special effects were primitive by today's standards, requiring Arnold to act against nothing, imagining future CGI enhancements that didn't yet exist. Worse, internal studio pressure kept mounting. Executives visited the set, watching footage with increasingly worried expressions. "He's too stiff," they complained. "Too emotionless. Audiences won't engage." Cameron's response: "That's the entire point. The one-liner that changed cinema, 'I'll be back,' 3 words. In the script, it was just functional dialogue, the Terminator informing a police desk sergeant of his intentions before leaving to acquire weapons. Cameron wrote it as straightforward exposition. Nothing special. But Arnold saw something else. He suggested a reading that was simultaneously matter-of-fact and menacing. Not a threat, just a statement of inevitable fact, the way a machine would announce its programming. They shot the scene multiple times. Each take, Arnold refined the delivery, removed emotion, made it flatter, more robotic. The final version was chilling in its simplicity, not because it was dramatic, but because it was utterly devoid of drama. When the Terminator returned moments later, driving a car through the police station entrance, the promise was kept with mechanical precision. That moment, the contrast between quiet statement and explosive action, became one of cinema's most iconic sequences. But nobody on set realized they just created a cultural phenomenon. It was just another day of difficult, low-budget filmmaking. The massacre scene, the police station massacre, remains one of cinema's most relentless action sequences. The Terminator methodically eliminates dozens of officers, moving through the building with inhuman efficiency. Arnold performed most of his own stunts, despite insurance concerns. He wanted every movement to feel authentic, robotic, unstoppable. When the Terminator is shot, Arnold's body barely reacts, just slight physical adjustments as the machine recalculates and continues its mission. But filming was brutal. Squibs, small explosive devices that simulate bullet hits, were taped directly to Arnold's body under his costume. Each hit was a controlled explosion against his skin. By the end of the sequence, Arnold had burns and bruises covering his torso. Cameron pushed for more takes. "It's not mechanical enough. You're still moving like a human who's been shot. Move like a system reporting minor damage." Arnold reset, focused. He visualized himself as actual machinery, hydraulics, and circuits, not muscle and bone. The next take captured something genuinely unsettling, a beam that registered injury as mere data, not pain. The crew fell silent watching playback. They'd just filmed something unprecedented, an action sequence where the hero was actually the most terrifying presence on screen. The tech noir transformation, the nightclub sequence, where the Terminator hunts Sarah Connor through a crowded dance floor, required technical precision Arnold had never attempted. Cameron wanted the Terminator's scanning behavior to look authentically computerized. Arnold practiced tracking movements where his head turned in discrete increments, like a camera lens focusing. His eyes needed to suggest data processing, facial recognition software running behind human-looking features. Between takes, Arnold watched the other actors portraying humans, studying their natural, fluid movements. Then he deliberately did the opposite: fractional pauses, mechanical transitions, predatory stillness. Linda Hamilton, playing Sarah Connor, later admitted Arnold's presence genuinely frightened her during those scenes. He'd removed Arnold completely. "I wasn't acting scared, I was actually unnerved by whatever he'd become." That authenticity translated to film. Audiences didn't see Arnold Schwarzenegger playing a robot. They saw something that made them question if Arnold himself was somehow inhuman. The post-production crisis: when Orion executives watched the first rough cut, the meeting turned hostile. "He's terrifying, sure," one executive said. "But audiences won't root for him. They won't want to see him again. He's killed the franchise before it starts." The studio had counted on Arnold's star power to carry a modest sci-fi film. Instead, they had a movie where the biggest star was the antagonist, and the actual protagonists, Kyle Reese and Sarah Connor, were relatively unknown actors. Marketing became a nightmare. How do you sell Arnold Schwarzenegger in a role where he's hunting and murdering innocent people, where he has minimal dialogue, where his character has zero redeeming qualities? Test screenings added to the confusion. Audiences were riveted, but conflicted. They'd never seen anything like the Terminator, a villain who generated fascination rather than hatred. People were simultaneously terrified and mesmerized. Cameron fought for his vision. "We're not making a traditional action film. We're making a horror movie disguised as science fiction. The Terminator is the monster, but he's the monster everyone remembers." The studio reluctantly agreed to Cameron's marketing approach: lean into the fear. Make Arnold's inhuman performance the selling point. Don't apologize for making him the villain, celebrate it. The premiere night, October 26, 1984. The premiere at Hollywood's Chinese Theater was unusually quiet. No massive fanfare, no confident studio predictions of blockbuster success. Arnold sat in the audience, genuinely nervous for the first time in years. He'd gambled his career on an instinct. If audiences rejected this performance, if critics savaged him for abandoning heroism, his movie star trajectory could end tonight. The lights dimmed. From the opening sequence, the Terminator arriving naked from the future, brutally assaulting punk rockers for their clothes, the audience was locked in. Not laughing, not cheering, captivated. Every Arnold scene generated the same response: tense silence followed by exhaled breaths. His mechanical movements, emotionless dialogue, relentless pursuit, it worked. Against all conventional wisdom, it worked. When the film ended, applause erupted. Not polite premiere applause, genuine enthusiasm. Arnold sat back, exhaling tension he'd carried for months. He'd done something unprecedented, made villainy iconic. The aftermath, the Terminator, became a phenomenon nobody predicted. Made for $6.4 million, it earned $78.3 million globally. Critics praised it as smart, intense, original. But the real story was Arnold. Reviews specifically called out his performance as chillingly effective, genuinely frightening, and a revelation. The role that every advisor said would destroy his career had actually elevated it to another level entirely. The catchphrase "I'll be back" became cultural shorthand. Arnold's mechanical delivery turned a throwaway line into cinema history. Suddenly, his thick accent, The thing Hollywood said made him unmarketable became part of his appeal. The Terminator's inhuman quality was enhanced by sounding foreign, otherworldly. But the gamble's true payoff came later. Arnold had proven he could transform, take risks, trust his instincts over industry conventional wisdom. Every role afterward, from Predator to Total Recall to True Lies, benefited from the credibility earned by becoming cinema's most memorable villain. More importantly, the Terminator franchise became one of Hollywood's most valuable properties. Arnold would return to the role multiple times, each appearance more heroic, but always retaining that machine-like quality that made the original so compelling. The legacy James Cameron later said, "Arnold understood something most actors don't. Being likable isn't the same as being memorable." The Terminator wasn't likable, it was unforgettable. That's why it worked. Looking back, the decision seemed obvious. But in 1983, it was insane. Every rational voice told Arnold to play it safe, take the hero role, protect his emerging stardom. Instead, he chose risk. He chose to become something cinema had never seen. A villain so compelling he transcended villainy itself. The farm boy from Austria who deconquered bodybuilding, and Hollywood now taught another lesson. The greatest successes come from the moments when you ignore everyone's advice and trust your own vision, even when that vision terrifies the people paying for it. Arnold didn't just play the Terminator. He became proof that the most dangerous career move might be playing it safe. And yes, he definitely came back.